Grow your practice, grow your wealth, grow your impact. Find out how to spend less time in the dental chair and more time on the things you love.
Welcome back to the Dental Wealth Podcast. Glad to have you here today. I'm so excited about our guest. Before I jump in, Matthew, glad to have you as always.
Back in the studio.
Our guest is Adam Witty, and Adam is the owner of Advantage Media, Forbes Books, Magnetic Marketing. He is an entrepreneur at heart. I've learned so much from him. I have been and I'll talk about that. I love your company. I'm a client of the company and what you do. You are such a promoter of entrepreneurs and dentists. And I just want to welcome you to the show. Glad to have you, sir.
Eric, we're going to have a lot of fun together. It's an honor to be with you. And we're talking about my favorite topic, which is marketing.
Well, I was saying before we got on the air, I said, you literally wrote the book on authority marketing. And I said, I've got the book and I've read the book, which is phenomenal. And we just jump right in, with this idea of authority marketing. Actually, from the very moment I heard this, I thought, what a great thing, authority marketing. So for those of, the listeners out there that say, what is that? What is authority marketing? What does that mean? It sounds really good. What does that mean? What is authority marketing?
Yeah, it's all about this idea of putting yourself as a doctor in a category of one, making yourself so unique and so different from everybody else that there's not a single patient that could adequately compare you to other dentists in your area. And the way that we help doctors become a category of one is by being the expert, the thought leader, the authority in their community, which makes you the go-to guy, the go-to gal that every patient would prefer to work with if given the choice. That's the big idea in a nutshell.
I was saying, here's the other book. So I was saying, I am a client. So I've, you all, amazing team helped me, people that are just brilliant helped me put together my book. And I will say that it has been amazing. The idea of people going through the book, listening to my concepts, being able to take all this in here and put it on paper so that people can hear my thoughts. It was transformative for me. And it's also been transformative for doctors. So if a doctor it wants to build authority in the marketplace, because I was telling you before we got on the air, I said, these are the best of the best. The people that listen to this most of these people are multi-location. Most of these doctors are ambitious. And so when they hear authority, that I would expect to see ears pop up. So when they go to create authority, I love this idea of book. We'll talk about other concepts, but how does a doctor do that? How does someone, so they're an expert in their industry, what does that mean?
Yeah, well, let me start by saying this, that authority marketing is largely a pretty sophisticated concept that doesn't make sense for most doctors.
Okay.
And here's the reason why. Authority marketing, it's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? The vast majority of people, the vast majority of doctors are kind of at the bottom of the pyramid where they're worried about, do I have food? Do I have water? Do I have a place to put my head at night? That's kind of what they're focused on, right? And at the top of the hierarchy of needs is what they call self-actualization, right? And only the very top of the top actually ever transcend to a point where they're actually focused on their own self-actualization. Well, authority marketing is similar. That if you're a doctor that's just worried about how am I going to get enough new patients in the door this week, this month to pay the bills, you don't need to be thinking about it.
Yeah.
Because you got bigger issues that you've got to rectify first. But to your point, authority marketing is really for the person that's already having success and quite frankly just wants to take it to the next level, right? And so what is authority marketing and how do you create it? Well, it's all about you being seen as an expert and as an authority in the minds, in the eyes of your patients and your prospective patients, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you do that? Well, if you think, who's somebody that I admire that knows a lot about something that I listen to or I go to for advice? What makes that all happen? Well, in many cases, Eric, they probably wrote a book about the topic. And so we know that hands down, writing and publishing a book is one of the most foundational things you can do to build authority, to build expertise, and to be seen as a thought leader by your peers and by your customers and your prospects. But what we've learned over the years is that if all you do is write and publish a book, you're leaving a lot of fruit on the tree. And it's not just the book, because the book's the foundation, but it's everything else that comes with that. And so for us, we say authority is, yeah, a book, but it's more than that. It's content marketing. So it's creating and publishing content that your customers and your prospects want to consume, because what you have to share with them helps them, right? We call it education-based marketing. And every doctor that's at the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they're thinking about education-based marketing, because if they can create better educated patients, they'll create more compliant patients that have a higher lifetime value to their practice, that have more success as a result of their treatment, right?
So let me ask you this question. This is kind of what everybody wants to know, whether they're saying it or not. So let's just say that I'm an endodontist. So all I do is root canals. And I should say all you do is I perform root canals daily. And so I go to write a book on root canals. And I'm thinking that if I'm marketing this to patients, they're probably not going to be so interested. So then, and I know you've had a lot of doctors write. I know for a fact you've had a lot of doctors write through Advantage Media, Forbes Books. So, and I agree. And I want to get on the content piece. I want to ask you that. Let's just say that they start with the foundation, which is a book, but they feel like the patient might not be as interested in that topic. Clinically, it would be amazing, but maybe the patients wouldn't be as excited about the topic. How does somebody frame that position?
Okay. You're putting me on the spot.
Welcome to the Dental Wealth Podcast.
Here's the title of the book. Everything you wanted to know about your root canal, but were too afraid to ask.
Wow.
Okay.
I like that.
So there's your book title.
Love it.
Now, this isn't War and Peace, okay? This might be a 120-page book. And you may even say to a prospective patient, look, you don't need to read the whole book. I just need you to read chapter 2, chapter 5, and chapter 8, and that'll take you about 30 minutes. Well, if I'm about to get a root canal, I'm going to want to read chapter 2, chapter 5, and chapter 8. And after I read those 3 chapters, I'm going to be more compliant, and I'm going to be a better patient for you. And I'm going to share that book with someone else if I ever learn they have to have a root canal of their own. So a lot of doctors are probably saying, well, it's what you just said. What in the world would I write a book about? And why would anybody care? Well, the answer is you wouldn't care unless you had to have a root canal. And if you learn that you have to get a root canal, this is the number one topic that you want to find an answer to at that moment in time. And that's where your book comes into place.
Do you build all other content around that book? So I know you were saying like different other avenues to educate the patient base. Do you use that as like your main source and then you branch everything off at that? Or do you just completely ignore that and just try to educate them with other philosophies as well?
Great question, Matt. So 100%, if you create a book, whether it's 20,000 words, 30,000 words, 40,000 words, I mean, it's a big book, right? I mean,
yeah,
we want to recycle, reuse, and repurpose the content in that book in as many ways and forms as are possible. So articles, white papers, blog posts, Quizzes or assessments that you could have on your website, right? Do you need a root canal? Take this 5-question quiz and find out, right? Well, we take all that content from the book, and it's all about creating content that's evergreen, which means it's not dated. So it's relevant today, just like it would be relevant 5 years from now. And educating patients and prospects to help them make better decisions. Eric, one thing I want to mention, because I know some of your doctors are already thinking this. They're thinking, I'm not a self-promoter. I think that it's tacky that anybody would do that. And that's not for me. We hear that a lot, especially from doctors, right? I mean, look, doctors took the Hippocratic Oath. They're here to serve patients. And so here's what I say to all of those doctors that are having that thought in their head. The best way you can be of service to humanity is to serve more patients. The only way that you can serve more patients is if they know you exist. And if you can educate them about what's keeping them up at night with a book and with content marketing and authority marketing, then all you're doing is serving your purpose and the oath you took many, many years ago.
I think about this idea of, we talked to doctors about, a lot of implant work is happening these days. But even that's becoming commoditized because so many people are doing it. But at the same time, the revenue from those procedures is really high. And for me, it's like, we have so many people doing it. So what makes you the authority in that spot? Why would I go to you for this procedure that's $50,000? And when I could go at $50,000, I want to do some research. If I'm doing that type of procedure, maybe even 5,000 or 7,000 or whatever it ends up being. But with these, especially in that area, I think that the authority really, 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 really matters, because they need to know that person is the authority in this area. And I love this idea of branching actually as you're talking at him, I'm like, I need to write more white papers off my book. But I think about it, Matthew, here we go.
Yeah. I'm like, here we go. Just open up a can of worms.
Let's go to work. So, okay. So I love this idea of all these things branching off the book, because I think that just allows all these thoughts to flow. And I love that, by the way, great job on the spot. I love that was a great title. But so, all right. So here's the next question then. So we have this idea of white papers, what I find out, or articles or blog posts. So now we get into this place where the doctor says, Eric, I'm already working my tail off. I'm already, how do I do that? How do I create content when I'm already really feel like I'm overwhelmed in all the things I'm doing? 2021 has been a banner year for dentistry, but it's also created busyness and people are working harder than ever. So how does somebody do that with so many demands on their time?
Yeah, great question. So 2 things. One would be, I don't expect you as a doctor to be doing all of this. You need to be spending time with your patients and your prospective patients, not doing the nuts and bolts of authority marketing that can help your practice thrive. That's why a company like ours, that's why a guy like me, that's why we exist, is because we help people do this so they can spend their most valuable time in the most productive way, which is with patients, with customers, with clients. The second thing that I want to add to that is that, look, every doctor listening is an authority in their field. They probably just don't give themselves the credit. You went to medical school, right? If you're one of the top producing practices in your community, it's because you produce great quality care. You have raving fan patients that are referring you, and your results speak for themselves. And so all we're doing is taking your knowledge, your expertise, your stories, your passion, your knowledge, and we're taking that out of your head and putting it into print form, and then taking this print form and distributing it into many other forms and fashions: articles, blogs, white papers, social media, podcasts, video snippets, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I want to say one other thing. So when you're in the implant business, or you're in the clear aligner business, or you're in the TMJ and sleep therapy business, which are all high ticket, high margin treatments. Well, the one thing that gives you more price elasticity than anything else is authority and expertise, right? You and I learned this from a mentor of ours named Dan Kennedy. And that is that if you want to get out of being seen as a commodity, if you don't want to be shopped against other people, you've got to put yourself in a category of one that cannot be compared to anybody else. And when you literally wrote the book on dental implants, whatever price you charge is likely the price that most people are going to accept. Well, you know, Dr. Smith wrote the book on implants. I kind of feel like I've got to go with him. Or I kind of feel like, you know, $15,000 is reasonable. He wrote the book on it. I mean, these are the conversations we have in our own heads.
I love this podcast right now because this is what we talked about before we went on the air, which is this is a sophisticated group of doctors. I said, the people listening to this are sophisticated. These are not people who are just trying to figure out how to send out some postcards. These are people who are saying, how do I in the marketplace get a strategic advantage? I get all the ads saying, hey, we'll get you 482 patients in 12 seconds if you buy our, whatever. And so these are people who are sophisticated. And I do, I love the category of one. I know right now there are so many doctors listening to this that are just all over everything you're saying. One concept that you and I both know well, but I want to, just in case they're not sure what that means, price elasticity. I love it, by the way. As soon as you said it, I was like, oh, I love that. So what is price elasticity for someone who is not familiar with that term?
Yeah. So again, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? You're not worried about price elasticity unless you're kind of at the top of the triangle. So it's really simple. I mean, imagine I had a rubber band in my hand, right? A rubber band that's elastic, you can stretch it and then it goes back. If you have a rubber band that's old and worn or dried out, it's inelastic. So as soon as you try to pull it, it snaps apart. Price elasticity means that you have the ability to expand your prices and the customer will still buy, right? They're not going to leave you because the price went up. And so the more authority, the more expertise, the more thought leadership you have in the minds of your patients and your prospective patients, the more you can increase your price without the rubber band snapping and without your patients going somewhere else.
I love it. I've got to ask, this might be thrown off a little bit, but I was talking to a plastic surgeon one time and we were in Canada. We were talking, he said, it's just me and another guy. We are the authorities in the area. Nobody else will go to anybody for plastic surgery, but us, we do the best facelifts. The problem is I have half the market and he has half the market. And gosh, everything I do, I can't figure out how to get more than 51% of market. We're just neck and neck. So I said to him, raise your prices to 20,000. And I was like, nobody wants to discount facelifts. I said, and he did. And we talked, he goes, man, it was great. He added some things to create more authority around that. But that price elasticity, which I thought is a great example, people were willing to pay 20,000 because now all of a sudden they were like, well, why would I pay 10,000? What's going on over here? I think I need to invest more because he's charging twice as much. He must be twice as good. And I thought that was an interesting, I always go back to that example and it really worked well for this doctor.
Yeah. Well, our mentor, Dan Kennedy, he said a long time ago, and I never forgot this. He said, the higher up you go in the food chain, meaning the more money you make, the more you're paid for who you are rather than what you do, right? Dental services, dental treatments are seen by most people as a commodity, right? You know, whether it's a filling or an implant or clear aligners, most people say, oh, it's the same anywhere I go. And so most people, they're buying dentistry based on, do they accept my insurance? Do they live close to my house? Is it on the way to or from work, right? But the higher up in income you go, the more people will pay you for who you are. Meaning, well, he's the doctor that wrote the book on implants, or he's the guy that's on the morning news every Tuesday morning at 7:30 a.m. Or he's the guy who has the podcast that my friend told me about. Or she's the doctor who wrote an article that my friend forwarded to me, right? And so that's really what it's all about, is building your who. Because the bigger your who is, the more power you have in the marketplace, and the more you can grow your practice. Again, it's not about ego, it's about helping people. The bigger your who, the more people are going to listen to you, the more people you can help.
I could literally talk about this all day. I really love this concept. I think the challenge for me, and we talked about this as well, which is, this is the one where doctors are saying, because we tell doctors, you're an entrepreneur. You're an entrepreneur. So get out of the chair 5 days a week, because what you're, in the chair, for most doctors, they're $1,700, $1,800 an hour. Now, we do have by the way, we have one doctor who does authority marketing, and he's on the news like once a week. By the way, this doctor is doing numbers that are just unheard of. Practices don't do in a year, in 1 month. But so authority marketing does work. But if I'm now that person who's been on the news, maybe I've got a book and I've established a brand, and people are saying, okay, Dr. Smith is the authority in the area. And now what ends up happening is I want to pull back and I want to promote some other doctors within my organization. My fear is that now I can't pull back because everybody wants to see the guru, the expert. So how do I deal with that? Because these are kind of like opposing theories, or are they, when you start thinking about how do I pull back but still build my brand?
Okay. 2 advanced marketing concepts. The first is what we call the authority halo. Okay. The second is what we call authority by association. Simply put, when you stand next to someone of high authority, their authority actually rubs off on you. And so you actually have more authority because you're standing next to them. Okay.
Okay.
And here's a great example, right? I'll give you a couple examples. Let's say I'm an IT services provider, right? It's a commodity.
Right.
But I am the only Microsoft certified IT services provider in Charleston, South Carolina. Now, there's other IT service providers that can do Microsoft implementation, but I'm the only certified authorized provider. Microsoft's one of the largest companies in the world. Everybody knows who they are. They have massive authority that then rubs off on me because of my association with them, right?
Right.
That's an example. Let's use an example that would be relevant to dentists and doctors. So let's take your associates, because you want to pull back to be more of a CEO, but you need the person that's with the patients every day also to be an authority. So we think that you can rub off your authority on your associates. Same thing, authority by association. There's a halo that surrounds you, Mr. or Mrs. Doctor, that can have a positive impact on your associates. Here's an easy way to do that. You co-author the book, right? So now you, as the senior doctor, as the owner of the practice, you're taking your expertise and beginning to shine it on your associates to build their authority, so they're seen as experts in the eyes of the patient and the prospect, and there's no longer a need for you to be involved in each and every case. right?
Mhm.
It's you and your associate doctors co-hosting your podcast together. It's you and your associate doctors co-authoring articles together. What's really cool about authority marketing is that everybody gets very focused on, well, it's all about building up me, and then what if I get hit by a bread truck? But authority can actually be shared with other people. You just have to strategically build it that way to accomplish that end goal. And look, if you ultimately want to sell a practice, one of the best ways is that when that doctor that buys your practice steps in, you build their authority by co-authoring and co-producing that thought leadership content together for some period of time, and then eventually you get to exit stage left.
This is beyond helpful, because I think that there's so many doctors right now that are just, who are looking for answers, who are looking for things that are not commoditized, and saying, how do I do it different? How do I build something that's different? How do I build a practice that stands the test of time? I think the associate thing is amazing, especially if they're trying to keep people long-term. I want to shift gears, if that's okay. I love the authority marketing. One of the also business things that we've worked together on and talked through is, my argument always in sophistication in dentistry is saying, I've always said, the problem is there's no sequence marketing. That what happens inside a dental practice is that no one's really controlling marketing and sales for the most part. It's outsourced to some company. So they cut a check for $4,000 or $5,000, never to be seen again, hoping people come in, putting faith in hoping there's some confidence in results that comes, but not being able to actually control marketing, control messaging, and being able to touch people multiple times to keep people top of mind. So they're always thinking of you. And so you built a platform around sequence marketing called MLive. I'd love to just talk about that for a minute. What was the thought behind MLive? What was the driving force? Why was MLive created?
Yeah, so 3 big ideas. Okay. And again, pretty sophisticated. The first is direct response marketing, where you communicate with a patient or a prospect and you want them to directly take some action. The second principle is multi-step marketing, also known as sequence marketing, where instead of you communicating with a prospect once and then if they don't respond, you forget about them, you communicate with them regularly in a defined sequence. You drip on them over a defined period of time. That's the second big idea. And then the third idea, which really is authority marketing, but we'll call it education-based marketing, right? So here's the big idea. I've spent a lot of time working with dentists. Through my Advantage Forbes Books business, we've had the privilege to work with probably 150 or 200 dentists around the country. And what I learned in working with them is that most of them have the same problems. And the same problems are, they invest money in advertising, they invest money in lead generation. And unless that prospect, that lead that they generate, immediately turns into a patient, they are forgotten about. And so a lot of doctors say, Google advertising doesn't work, or LinkedIn doesn't work, or Facebook doesn't work, or whatever doesn't work. And it doesn't work in their mind because within a month, that's probably generous, a 2 or 3 week period of time, that lead didn't buy something from them. And if they didn't buy in 2 or 3 weeks, they throw them out and say it was a bad lead. But what we know as marketers is that only 1% of the buying population is ever ready to buy when they hear your message, whether it's a TV commercial or reading your book, right? Now, if somebody knowingly picks up your book, they're going to be more ready to buy than somebody that watches your ad on TV. But the bigger point, Eric, is that most people aren't ready to buy today. So rather than throwing away your unconverted leads, which is what all doctors more or less do, we want to help doctors take a prospect from cold to gold. And that's really what MLive is all about. So we've developed software that automates multi-step, sequence-based education to nurture a prospect or nurture a patient to turn them into a buyer down the road.
When you said this, I was thinking about how our own funnel works. And Matthew was telling me yesterday that, we had a doctor sign up, and he had been in a sequence somewhere along the line. He got into a sequence, and then he read a book, and then he read another book of mine, and then he goes on the website. And, we're talking about a long process, because I think about this idea, and because I really want to emphasize this, because I think doctors need to learn a little patience. And I don't mean that rude, but it's like what ends up happening is this doctor I had to write the book and write it's 2 books that I have. One of them is a smaller book, but that's okay. More of an intro to who I am, and our philosophies, but they had to get that in their hands. And this doctor had to take some time and read that, go on the website, listen to podcasts. I mean, the amount of nurturing, going back to that word, is that this person had to hear so many times that they literally had to read a book, had to listen to the podcast, go to the website, watch a webinar. And so eventually that led this person to say, hey, I'm going to pick up the phone and talk to these people because I feel they're the authority in the area that I could use some help. I think that's exactly what happens with patients. And I think so many times we are just discarding, and I agree with you 100%. I've never heard it positioned that way, Adam, but I completely agree that what ends up happening is I spend $5,000, and if that patient doesn't call within 30 days, it didn't work, kill it, go get something else. When it doesn't work that way, the way it is you're nurturing this base who the more they hear from you. That's why during COVID, I was such an advocate of, hey, no one's talking. Right now, you are the authority by getting on Facebook for free or whatever. You're the authority. Right now, you can talk about whatever because you're a doctor and you got authority position, which is why I was a proponent at the time, was because I knew that would build authority very quickly in the marketplace because everyone was quiet. But I do think that people, we take for granted, we think that patients need us right now, and they don't necessarily. It's still at the top of mind. When does somebody call tower leadership? Well, it's not when things are kicking butt and taking names and everything's going great. They often call when it hurts or they've hit a wall, right? We have, the vast majority, thank goodness, of clients that are coming to tower leadership are really successful doctors, but they've hit a wall and they don't know how to get past it. So there's a pain point. Eric, I don't know how to get out of the chair, how to scale, how to grow, and I need you now. I didn't need you 8 months ago when your webinar was there. I didn't need you 6 months ago when you were sending me things in the mail I didn't want to read. I didn't need you 3 months ago when you sent me an email, but I need you today. And I think that's what I don't think that's what happens in dental care. And I think that doctors need to realize that if we nurture that and we can continue to communicate, not just by fun face, because somebody will come back to me and say, well, our team puts things on Facebook about, our this and that. And I say, no. This is way bigger than that. It's top of mind awareness so that when somebody has a need, when the tooth breaks, when they're in pain, when whatever happens, they think of you as the authority and they think of you first. And that's what you're saying MLive does, right? I mean, that's a thought.
Yeah, 2 terms I want to introduce to your audience, because these are the sophisticated marketers. These are the doctors that want to be at the very top. The first is current bank. The second term is future bank. Look, we all want to spend $1 in marketing and get an immediate sale.
Yes.
Absolutely.
We all want that, right? That would be current bank. You spend $1, immediately your current bank is filled by $1. But marketing, unfortunately, does not work that way. And that's the reason that most doctors say foolishly, well, marketing doesn't work. No, marketing does work. You just have to be patient. And so when a doctor invests in marketing, really what you're doing is you're investing in building your future bank, not your current bank. Okay. And so, as you said, somebody raises their hand and says, hey, I'm kind of interested in what you do. Or, hey, I want to read your book. Or, hey, I want to listen to your podcast. But they may not come to you and seek treatment for a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months later. Now, does that mean that that investment was worthless? No. It just means that you have to sow the seeds if you eventually want to reap the harvest. The best analogy that I can use is most entrepreneurs I meet, and it's not just dentists, but most entrepreneurs I meet, when it comes to marketing, they're really gamblers, which means they put a coin in the slot, they pull the lever, and they want to win big immediately.
That's right?
Right?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, 100%.
However, the best marketers, the best doctors, they're farmers. And they realize that they're going to plant crop in the spring and they're not going to reap a harvest until the fall. And so until you develop a farmer mindset instead of a gambler mindset, I think it's really hard to have long-term sustained success in marketing if you aren't willing to change your mindset from gambler to farmer.
You know, Matthew sometimes is like my yogi or whatever when it comes to calming me down in marketing, because I'm the quick start who wants immediate results. And Matthew will send me some Zen sometimes and say, you know, Eric, that's coming 2 years from now, just so you understand that what you're doing today won't harvest for 2 years, but just be patient, you know,
trust the process,
right? Trust the process, because it is. I was thinking one day how, you know, the time it takes to put your thoughts into a book, and the time it takes to create a podcast, and the time it takes to create white papers, and the time that takes to nurture the audience. And it's interesting. I was saying, well, you can't just pick up tomorrow and do what I've done, because it's going to take you years. There's just no way you could do it overnight. It's not the way it works, because by the time you've decided, hey, I'm going to try to catch up, I've already put in years and years of authority marketing to position myself in the company. So same thing happens for dentists. Is like, if all of a sudden what ends up happening is I'm getting this authority in the marketplace, because you got to start now and then build that up, because it does take time. And then now you're nurturing through MLive, you're using that constant touch point. When it happens, when it occurs, when that moment they say, I need somebody, you're the one that they think of. Agreed?
100%.
What about current patients? What about, okay, I've got some patients that are current patients. And by the way, we're a little bit over, I told you, but this is so compelling. Do you have a few more minutes with me? This is good. Okay. Cause I'm loving this. This is good stuff.
This is what Eric and I talk about all the time.
Yeah, that's right. So what if it's current patients? So now I'm using a software. So let's just say I've got a book. I'm nurturing my audience. I understand that it takes time, that I'm a farmer, that it's going to be a time, and it takes time. If you want to be the top of the top, you don't flick, just click your fingers. But now I'm creating authority in the marketplace. I've got a system. I've got MLive in place. MLive is nurturing people, and it's communicating with the marketplace. And this is, to me, this system, I have not seen anything, by the way, like it in the marketplace. That's why when I first saw MLive, I was like, finally, somebody created what I've been begging for so long. And I remember 2 doctors I had dinner with one day, and I just said, if somebody would figure out how to do sequence type marketing in dental, because no one's doing it, and if they were consistent at it and they didn't try to just turn it on and turn it off, and they stuck with it, they would dominate the marketplace. And I thoroughly believe that. I know you have so many case studies from MLive, and what I also want to talk about the current patients, because I always get that. Well, what about my current patients? Some reason it's so interesting. People, because I think the whole market's like new patients. I had someone tell me one time, they were like, oh, we don't want to answer the phone after hours. That's just our current patients. I was like, okay, like once they come in, they're just current patients, you're chopped up, So, what about current patients? Should we be nurturing them too? Do I build authority with them? I mean, these are people that know, like, trust me, I would hope. They've done something with me, at least from a hygiene perspective. They're in my database. Should I go to those people maybe even first and communicate with them? I mean, is that kind of where I should go?
Yeah. So class is in session, right? It's been a lot of fun. So I'm going to give you another one. All the doctors need to know LCV, lifetime client value. Now call it LPV, lifetime patient value, right? And so your goal and the question that you need to ask is, what am I doing today? What am I doing tomorrow to grow my lifetime patient value? Because look, it's real simple. If a patient's worth $1,000 a year, and let's just say you've got 1,000 patients that your practice serves, then you've got $1 million practice. So let's say you want to grow. You want to get to 2 million. Well, there's a couple ways you could do it. One is you could double the number of patients you serve, which means you're probably working twice as hard, which means you're either hiring an associate or you're just working double the hours. And most doctors, they will just double the hours. Or you say, I think I'm good at 1,000 patients. How do I get the average lifetime patient value from $1,000 a year to $2,000 a year? So I can double my practice without increasing the number of patients that I serve by having this expansion mindset. So what does that mean? That means you've got to cross-sell, you've got to upsell, you've got to next sell. You bring a patient in, maybe it's for a cleaning. You bring a patient in, maybe it's for a filling. You bring a patient in, maybe it's for clear aligners. And most doctors, they provide the treatment, the patient walks out the door, and that's it. It's a transaction. And so the big clarion call that I want all of your doctors to have is stop thinking like it's a transaction. Think of it like it's a lifetime relationship that has just started. And so the big idea behind MLive is not just to nurture and engage prospects, but it's to nurture, engage, and educate existing patients so they'll do more business with you. Because I learned a long time ago, Eric, and I know you learned the same lesson. The hardest thing in business is to get a new customer. Hands down, it is the hardest thing. It's a lot easier to nurture, engage, and upsell existing customers than it is to go get new. But most doctors, as you know, new patients, new patients, new patients, new patients. That's all they talk about, and it's all they think about, where they're squandering their greatest asset, which is their existing patient base.
This has been unbelievable. I mean, this is, Adam, obviously this is such an area of expertise for you. I am so thankful. I really think about this podcast. I mean, this is a transformative podcast. I mean, really, the people listening to this are trying to do things that nobody else is doing. This idea of using, like, I'm a huge fan of MLive. I'm a huge fan of what it does. I think people do need to understand that that nurturing, that it is an instant. I'm a huge fan of building authority in the marketplace. Obviously, I've had the blessing of working with your talented team and helping me. I plan on doing a lot more in the future. They made, it's the same thing because I didn't have the time to sit down and so, what a great asset. So, I know you're here to support, but at the same time, I'd love to do the same for you. If somebody, because I know we have the best of the best, someone says, okay, Eric, this is great. This Adam Witty guy, by the way, you guys, this is such an honor to have Adam. I know how busy you are. I know how many things you're doing. Let's just say that they want to create this authority and they've heard about authority marketing and Forbes books and Advantage Media. They think about MLive. And so they love this process. What should they do? Do they contact somebody? What do they do if they want to learn more?
I'm going to make it real easy, and I'm going to make it really personal. Send me an email personally, and I'll connect you personally with the right people on the Advantage Forbes Books team, on the MLive team, to see if we can help you. And all you have to do is send an email to Witty, AWITTY, at advantageww.com. That's my private personal email address. And I will then get you connected to the right person on our team if we can help you.
You know, I appreciate that. I think that from the first time I met you, I remember you walking into a room and, you had acquired a company that I had some business with, and it wasn't even anything it was the past owner and the past ownership. And, I said, this is what was my experience. And not only you took over for that other company, you said, I'm going to make it right because now it's my company. And since that literally was my first transaction meeting you. And so since the moment I've met you, you've been just such a blessing. I mean, the amount of education, what your team has done, what MLive's done for so many of our clients, I think, and you've always been easy to contact. You're personable. You really you care about entrepreneurs, and you want to help them. And that's so easy to see. So thank you for being here. I really do appreciate it. I know the doctors do as well.
Eric, Matt, man, my favorite topic in the world, helping entrepreneurs grow their business with better marketing. Any way I can help, let me know. It's been a real pleasure.
Guys, reach out to Adam, reach out to his team. I'm telling you, this is just scraping the beginning of what they can do. And he's passionate about it. People and his companies can do so much for you. That's why I wanted you on the podcast. And I said, I really want Adam here to talk about this marketing. It's such a great concept. And this was so next level thinking. So certainly appreciate it. Matthew, thank you for joining us from Texas. We'll see you guys next time.